My name is Lawson, and what I'm about to share with you is an experience that has haunted me for years. It's something that happened to me and my friends during a camping trip in the woods of Maine. I've always loved the outdoors and have been camping many times, but that night was unlike any other. It was early October, and the leaves were just starting to turn. My friends Sarah, Mike, and I decided to take advantage of the beautiful weather and go on a weekend camping trip. We chose a spot deep in the woods, far away from any towns or people, seeking solitude and nature's beauty. We arrived in the afternoon, set up our tents, and gathered firewood. As the sun began to set, we sat around the campfire roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. It was a perfect evening, cool but not cold, with a clear sky full of stars. As the night grew darker, we noticed the woods around us growing quieter. The usual sounds of crickets and rustling leaves seemed to fade away, leaving an eerie silence. We brushed it off, thinking it was just our imaginations playing tricks on us. Round midnight, we decided to call it a night. I was in my tent, nestled in my sleeping bag, when I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping sound coming from the woods. It was faint at first, but it gradually grew louder and more persistent. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just a branch tapping against a tree or an animal moving around. Then I heard Sarah whisper my name from her tent. "Emma, do you hear that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah, I hear it," I replied. "It's probably nothing." But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The tapping continued, steady and relentless. It sounded almost deliberate, like someone was tapping a stick against a tree in a rhythmic pattern. Mike, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "I'm going to check it out," he said, unzipping his tent. "Are you crazy?" I whispered back. "Stay inside. It's probably just an animal." But Mike was already out of his tent, flashlight in hand. Sarah and I exchanged worried glances before reluctantly following him. The tapping sound led us deeper into the woods, our flashlights barely cutting through the darkness. As we moved closer, the tapping suddenly stopped. We stood still, holding our breath, straining to hear anything in the oppressive silence. Then, without warning, a loud crack echoed through the trees, followed by a blood-curdling scream. It was a sound I will never forget, pure terror and agony. We ran back to our campsites as fast as we could, our hearts pounding. Once we reached the fire, we huddled together, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Mike, usually the bravest among us, looked pale and shaken. "What was that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Mike replied. "But we're not staying here another minute." We quickly packed up our gear, dousing the fire and throwing our belongings into our backpacks. The sense of urgency was overwhelming, and we felt as if we were being watched. Every rustle, every crackle of the leaves made us jump. As we made our way back to the car, the feeling of being followed intensified. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of our vision, and the silence was almost suffocating. We finally reached the car, threw our stuff in, and sped away, not looking back. When we got back to town, we went straight to the local ranger station and reported what had happened. The ranger listened to our story with a serious expression and told us that several people had reported strange occurrences in those woods over the years, unexplained noises, sightings of shadowy figures, and even a few disappearances. I haven't been camping since that night. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just an animal or our imaginations. Something sinister lurks in those woods, and I'm convinced that it was watching us that night, playing with our fear. I often wonder what would have happened if we hadn't run when we did. I share this story as a warning. If you ever find yourself in the woods at night and hear that rhythmic tapping, get out. Don't wait to find out what it is. Some mysteries are better left unsolved, and some places are better left alone.